Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Southern Reads podcast. This is a show where I talk about books and only books and everything book related. For today, I wanted to tell a little bit of a story time about my journey with reading and just how my relationship with books has shifted over the years. It's a wild journey. Let me start this saying that I love to read now, but that was not the case a few years ago, and I will discuss all that. So, I don't really know where to begin. I guess we can begin at kindergarten. Yeah, I think we can start there. We'll make our way through the school system, as the school system is going to be the main key factor in my decision of reading. So, growing up, when I was little, I liked to read even when I was little. I was a huge animal lover. So any kind of animal books that existed out there, I had it. It was thick books, thin books, books that were on birds, reptiles, mixture of both, mammals, all of that. And we would get them mainly from Books A Million, Walmart, Barnes & Noble. Sometimes we ordered them online. Back in the 2000s, there was a company that released animal books. I don't know if they're still a thing now, but they were called Zoo Books. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but we used to get Zoo Books through the mail. I think it was once a month or once a week. It might have been once a month that I'm sitting here remembering. But I loved anything animal related. And me and my grandmother, before she passed away, that's all we did. Basically every time I would bring a book in there, me and her would just look at them. It was set in stone. That was just what we did growing up. I loved it. When I started doing school, this was about kindergarten and first grade, they started reading books to us. And it was the picture books. It wasn't the long chapter books yet, because we were not at that level yet. And I just remember reading some of the funniest books in the library, because we had a librarian that used to read to us. We used to go there not often, but we went there kind of sporadically. We went there and I liked it. I actually kind of liked reading. Second grade is kind of where my hopes for it will go, and there's some program that I'm going to really talk about, and that's going to be the main factor in this whole story. My school, and every school is different. If you didn't have to do this when you were in school, count your blessings. We had this thing called AR, which is abbreviated and short for accelerated reading or accelerated reader. And all it was is it was a program that was run by the school. You would go to the library and you would check out a book, and you would read the book, and then you would have to go into this AR program and you would take a test on it. Now, this to me is not a way for kids to read, and I'll get into that later in just a little bit. I didn't mind it because elementary school, they weren't too forceful about it like some later on. But second, third, and fourth grade, that's all it was. And I also was in book club, which mainly meant that my mom just read the books and I pretended to listen. I just went for the activity. I preferred the activities over the books. Now, some of the books that we did read for book club I did like. I'm trying to think of some of the books we read. I remember we read Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It was The Ugly Truth. It was the purple cover. It was like one of the books in the earlier series. We read those. If anyone remembers Geronimo Stilton, it was a series, long series that talked about a rat. We read one of those. I liked those books. I'm trying to think else for book club what we did. There was something with pie. Now, I can't fully remember what it was, but there was some kind of book that talked about pie. I can't remember the name. I can't fully remember what that book was. And then there was one that talked about dogs. I don't really quite remember it. Dogs, and they went to a jail, or they were police dogs. I can't fully remember. Those was just some of the books I remember from book club. But yeah, I did book club all throughout elementary school and liked it. I mean, it wasn't bad books because they gave you a full list of options. They didn't give you one book and then you had to read it. There were options that you could do, and it was broken up into grades and what you prefer. But of course, if you're in first grade and you wanted to read a book that was for fourth graders, I don't think it was forced upon yourself not to do it. I mean, it was any book that you wanted off that list you could do. There was no guideline or rules stated that you have to read a book that is in your grade level. So yeah, we did those kind of books, and the book club meetings were fun. It was always a mixture of talking about it, eating, and doing some kind of activity. I remember for one of the, I think, Geronimo and Stilton books, the teacher I had was actually my teacher that I had as my actual teacher, because that was the thing, that the teachers did the books, and sometimes they were actually your homeroom teacher, which at my elementary school we just stayed in the same classroom all day, and all the teachers had to teach every subject. So it was kind of funny being in there, and then your teacher knows who you are because you're in her class. But she did a murder mystery type, and I remember she went outside. We did someone died, and there was a body with tape. There was a body outline and tape, and I think we had to solve clues and have to solve like a mystery about how or what happened. That was one of my favorite meetings with her. That was one of the best ones I did. That was the most fun I had. And then, every meeting we had was good. There wasn't really a bad meeting that I can remember. But now we move into middle school, and this is where my love for reading really started to decline. When I started 5th grade, middle school which our middle school was a prison. I mean, there's just no easier way of saying that. Our school was a prison. They felt that everything had to be court ordered. The only thing that was missing from it was our orange jumpsuits. If we had the orange jumpsuits, it would have been a prison for kids. They were really forceful about reading. I remember in 5th grade especially, they were very kind of mean about it. And they would do that thing where they said, oh, well, if you read this amount of books, you get to do this kind of activity, trying to get you to read. They did anything that they could to read. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't say, we won't do schoolwork the rest of the year if you read this many books. I mean, that's just how twisted and how sick they were, trying to get people to read. And this was the same method of how elementary school worked. You would go to the library, you would pick a book out, check it out, go back and read it, and then you would log onto your AR account. The AR was still centerfold, and you would take a test on the book, and then once you're done, you go back to the library and you repeat the whole process over and over and over again. It wasn't optional. This was full-on mandatory that you had to go and do it. There was no option where it said, oh, well, I don't really like reading, and they said, okay, you don't have to do it. It was basically you do it or die, or you get in trouble or get ISS. That's just how it went. And my middle school did book club, but here is a really twisted way. I almost said a curse word. I caught myself for it. This is not the personal podcast. This is how middle school did their book club routine. Get ready, because it's wild. It was kind of the same format. They had a list of books that you could read, but it was more of a 1 or 2 books. It was not a list range to where you could pick out a book. You had to pick either 1 or 2. Once you got done with the book, you would then go back, and this wasn't powered through the library. You would go to this woman's classroom. She worked in her own classroom. You would go there, say, yes, I've got the book done. Then you had to take a test. Now, I thought the whole point of book club was this part came in the meetings. So why are we having to do this full-on pre-test instruction to get into book club? It was so twisted, and it was really stupid. I kind of got smart with the main person over it, because the person that I had, I don't have to bleep it, but they were just they were straight up rude. I think in her mind she thought I was dumb, which, I mean, she can have that opinion. I mean, she wasn't far from the club, but I just didn't like how the format was. I mean, the whole point of book club is you read the book and then you discuss the book at the meeting. You don't take a pre-test where you have to prove that you read the book. I mean, shouldn't the meetings be enough to show if you read the book or not? And so after I got done with my test, she said, you didn't get any of the questions right. And she was like, did you even read this book? She kind of had a smart attitude. And I said, yes, I did. And she said, well, go read it again. And I thought, hell no, I ain't gonna do that. I am not doing that. I said, so I said, okay, just to satisfy her. And so I left and waited a few days and didn't carry the book back. Well, I turned the book in and she said, oh, do you want the next book? I said, no, thank you. I said, no, I don't like how you run it. And I told her that, no, I'm good. I don't think book club's right for me because I don't like it. And then I left. And then I never did book club again after that. So in middle school, never to get into a meeting because I couldn't pass the first step of getting into the cult. But 5th grade was just, they had a sick way up for book club and for reading. 6th grade was the same way. 6th grade, they were so forceful about it to the point where our reading teacher had us do a reading log. Now, when you're reading as an adult, I want everyone here that's listening to me say, if you're in school and this is happening to you, if you were having to endure this in school and you like reading, this is not what the real world is like. You're not going to have to remember a book for your life. Once you get done with school, you can read a book in your own time and you don't have to worry about taking a test on it. You don't have to worry about reading it by this certain date. You take as long as you need and you enjoy the book. I know school can ruin it sometimes, just like it did me, but just know that it's not going to be like this every time. Life is not like that. Reading is actually more enjoyable now, and I will get to that later. So when 7th grade rolled around, they weren't too forceful about reading 7th and 8th grade, but we still had to do where we had to read in class. And 5th and 6th grade had already done the damage. I mean, the damage had already been done to where I hated reading by 7th grade. I didn't like reading. I didn't want to pick up a book. I didn't want to read a page. Nothing. I didn't want to do any of that. So reading in class was a little dreadful because I just particularly didn't mind the book, and we'd still would have to take a test on it no matter what. And if I was a teacher that taught reading, I would not be so forceful about them having to remember a book. I mean, that's just me, and everyone has a different opinion on it, but I think if you want a kid to like reading, you don't need to be so forceful about it. You don't need to put all these guidelines and rules in place to make them not want to read. Because these rules that they had for us when I was in school is what caused me not to read. So 7th and 8th grade, the books we read in class, I just didn't really pay any attention to. When it came to having to read it on our own, slacked off and basically diddle-daddled and just wasted enough time, procrastinated. I did everything I could just so I couldn't read the book. Well, then here comes high school, and then high school introduced the whole thing for summer reading, and I have got to say, I don't know what the point of summer reading is. The whole point of summer break is for you not to do schoolwork. So why are you giving us work to do? Summer reading should be one of those things that are required for summer school students as a punishment for them not focusing when they were in school to begin with. I think that should be when summer school is. Not for us students that worked really hard during the school year to get 2 months off. And this was the same pattern every summer. This is what happened every year. We would get a list of books, and I always seemed to pick one good book and one trashy book. And not trashy as in dirty, trashy as in it was awful. 9th grade, I remember I read Tuesdays with Morrie, and I honestly can't tell you anything that happened in that book. I just know it was pretty good. I liked it. And then we read this book that was in PDF form on the computer, and I kid you not, the names in that book were password codes. I'm not lying. Most books would have names like Sebastian or Mary or Tom. This one was X47GX or Z924ABE. I'm like, is this programming codes or are these actual names? I couldn't tell you what that book was. I can't tell you the name. I think our teacher had a little bit of a cuckoo. Something was like wrong with her in that department, because why would you like that? So, and then that 9th grade year, we read 2 of the worst books I've read, and I'm not gonna get hate for this, but To Kill a Mockingbird and Lord of the Flies, those were just not for me. And this isn't coming from someone that was forced to read them. This is coming from a general reader now. I don't think those books were good. I don't. And even usually, because at this point, if there was any book that was made into a movie, I would always say the movie was better. To Kill a Mockingbird, the movie wasn't even that good. And that says a lot. If I don't like the book or the movie, then it's trash. So, yeah, I didn't like that. And then Lord of the Flies, I just didn't know what was going on in there. I don't. So, those were the 2 main books that I remember reading. Oh, and then we read, was it Macbeth? Romeo and Juliet? Yeah, I didn't know what was going on in them books either. To be honest, I didn't know anything. I was also sick with the flu during this time, and my teacher got mad at me because I got sick and I had one of the lead roles, and I said, well, I don't mind coming to school and infecting everybody. I don't care. I don't have one problem sharing all these germs with you guys. I want y'all to endure the pain I've been enduring. I said, well, if you want the flu, I can come. Just tell me what time and I'll be there. And then 10th grade, it was the same thing. We read... Now, this one was different. The book that... We had to read 2 books, and this was the thing every summer. We had to read 2 required books. That year, we read A Walk to Remember, which was actually good, I have to say. As a person at this time that didn't like it, I actually liked A Walk to Remember. It was really good. And then we read the worst book that I think has ever been published, The Scarlet Letter. I don't know what was going on in that book, but I think the author was on drugs, because the book made zero sense. And this is not me just dissing it because I didn't like reading it at the time. I look back at it and I can't remember a name. I can't remember a scenery plot. I can't remember a scene that happens in the book. Nothing. I can't even visualize a scene from it. And I'm a visual learner, so if I'm reading a book, I'm immediately planting and forming a picture in my mind of what the character looks like, what the scene looks like. It helps my brain focus. So if I can't remember a scene layout when I read it, then that book was not good. I've not seen any of the adaptations of it, so I can't speak if the movie or show adaptations, if there are any, are good. I just know from the book it was trash. And in that 10th grade year we read in class, we read A Walk to Remember again. I don't know what the point of it was to be on summer reading if we were just going to read it in class. So basically read Walk to Remember twice, and I have a rule that I think it's not, reading a book one time is more special than a second, because when you read it a second time you already know what's going to happen, and it takes away the fun and anticipation for when the scene actually happens. That's just me. Everyone's different. I know some people that read books 3 or 4 times, and I just, after the first one, I can pretty much remember a lot of the scenes in it to where I don't even need to read it again. I know what happened. And so the whole time I was reading this, I remembered everything that happened in there. And then we read some kind of book that was in a textbook that came, what was the name of that company? What was the name of it? Oh, this is gonna kill me. Macmillan? Is that the name of it? I can't remember. It's what schools use for textbooks and the little workbooks that come with it. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. If you know, you know. Yeah, it was a story that was in those books, and I honestly don't even remember what it was. Was it witch? I think it focused on a witch. I don't know. I don't remember. So then, yeah, we read that, and then we read. It was something to do with it was a historical book, and I'm trying to remember the significance of the book. Something that happened in St. Louis during the 60s or 50s. They're right there in my brain. It was a group of African Americans, kids, and they went to, no, it wasn't St. Louis, it was Little Rock. It was Little Rock. Yeah. Little Rock 9, if you know the story and historical thing, you know what I'm talking about. But it focused on these kids that were of color in the 60s, and this was when race was still a really big thing. And I can't remember the Big 9. What was the name of that book? What was the name of it? Because it was actually pretty good. I actually kind of liked it. For someone that didn't like reading at the time, looking back at it now, it's good. But in that moment, I didn't really like it. But it was good. But I can't remember the name, y'all. I'm sorry. But if you know anything about the Little Rock 9, it was a bunch of African American kids that formed a group that fought against racism and freedom. That's the book that we read in class, and it was pretty good. So then 11th grade year rolled around, and I can't remember the 2 books I read for summer that year. One was The Glass Castle, and that was a good book. And then what was the second book that we read? I have gone blank on the second book we read. I can't remember what the second book was. Well, it couldn't have been that good if I can't remember what the book was. So, there you go. That's how that second book was. Yeah, I can't remember what that book was. I don't. I think it had, but The Glass Castle focused on a girl I remember from, what was the significance of the book? I can't remember the name of I can't remember what happens in the book. I know that's bad on my part, but I can't fully remember what it was. Oh Lord. Well, anyways, if you've read The Glass Castle, you know what I mean. It was a book that focused on a family. Yeah, focused on a family, yeah. So that's what that book was about. And And then, what did we read in class that year? By the way, this is still, I hated reading at this point. Throughout all of high school, this is when I started reading. This is still when I hated reading. We read a book in class about Auschwitz and the event that happened there. We read a book, and then we watched not a film, not like a theatrical movie, but a TV movie based on Auschwitz. What was? I'll look this up on my phone because I don't want to mess up the name. I can't fully remember what the name of the book was, or not the book, the event that took place. My brain is not braining right now. My thinker's not thinking. But yeah, if you know what I'm talking about, we read a book based on that, and it was talking about this person that, the Auschwitz concentration camp. That's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. It was the concentration camp in 1940 to 1945, and it focused on a character that was part of the, was in the middle of that, and it basically told his story. It was kind of a, was it nonfiction, or was it based on it? Oh, this looks really bad on me, but I can't remember from 2018. A lot has happened with me since then, and I can't fully remember what happens. I think, and don't take my word on it, but it might have been based on true. I think the names in there were true, and the story that was true. I don't think it was a fiction story about the event. Does that make sense? So the event happened, but it wasn't like a story. The people that were named in the book, I think, were actually their names. It wasn't fake names. I don't know if that makes sense. Moving on. We read that, and then we read something with Malcolm X. But I think it was part of the textbook that we had. It wasn't a separate book. And then, oh Lord, my brain from 11th grade is just not there. Instead of reading a book, we watched a movie adaptation of this book, and I cannot remember what it was. What's the name of it? It was an older style of the film, but the new one, Tobey Maguire plays one of the lead roles. What was it? Oh my god, what was it? Hold on. It was based on a book, Great Gatsby. Yeah. We ran out of time when it came to reading The Great Gatsby, so we watched a movie of it, and I think it was made back in the 70s. Couldn't tell you who was in it, but we instead of reading the book, we just watched the film version of it. So I can't really tell you how accurate the film was. The film was okay. It wasn't really that great. And then when we got to 12th grade, the only book I remember reading for summer reading that year was Fahrenheit 451, and that book was kind of to me. I personally didn't like it. And, in the mindset of me liking to read, I don't think it was even that good of I don't think I'd like it now. If I'm thinking about it, I don't think I would like it. So, yeah, I personally did not like the Fahrenheit 451. Now, I know there's a adaptation, and I think it's a TV. Well, is it a TV show or is it a movie? It's on one of the streaming platforms, and I want to get this right. Give me a second. I will find it. it was a 2018 film on HBO. So I don't know if it's on there now or it got removed. But I remember back in 2018, they made a film version. It was actually a film of that, and it was released on HBO. So if you've seen it, you might could give me shoot me a message, even though I don't have HBO, and just tell me how it was. Yeah, after that year, and then when I got into a very old timey class when we got into this reading. Our reading teacher, we read. I swear, why has my name? I'm telling you, I blocked out a lot from these classes in high school and books that we read because they were so bad, to where I can't remember a single name. What? We read Macbeth. I was one of the lead roles for Macbeth, knowing that I couldn't read at the time. Not that I was illiterate, just I couldn't read out loud good like I can now. I can actually read out loud pretty well because I got back into reading and it helped with my reading skills. But 17-year-old me couldn't read in front of people. So why I thought it was a good idea to get a lead role for the class, no idea. I think the main reason was because no one wanted it, and I said, fine, I will take the lead role. Not realizing the choices I had made. Let's see. What? So we did Macbeth, and that it was fine. But then we watched this. We read a book, and then we watched a movie based on the book, and the movie was kind of messed up. It was. Oh, what style of film? It was animated like Shrek was, where the characters looked realistic, but it was animated. I remember Angelina Jolie was in it. She voiced a character, and it was an old-timey film. Wikipedia, where you at? But yeah, I remember we read this book, and I can't remember the names of any of the characters in there because I think it was a fantasy-esque book, so of course the names were probably wacky. That's just how most of the books back then were. Pre-1980, they used We Art Thou, and then used all kinds of Beowulf. That can't be the... Is that the... Oh yeah, animated fantasy. Yeah, Beowulf. I think the movie is okay. The book that we read was okay. I mean, I couldn't tell you anything that happened in it. I just know in the movie someone's head gets eaten off. But that's about all I can really tell you plot-wise. Yeah, I remember someone gets their head eaten off. So that was pretty graphic. Was it about dragon? No, it wasn't. I don't know what the book was. I'm not even going to try to think about it. But then, yeah, so after that, after we got done with 12th grade, of course, I was a COVID child, and then during quarantine, we got out of school early in March, and we didn't go back to school till college. This is where my reading journey gets a little interesting. So I was finally free from summer reading. I didn't have to worry about summer reading anymore. There were times where I thought about starting reading, but then I thought, no, I don't want to, because all the flashbacks of going back to having to think about remembering the book, having to take a test on it, and all this stuff kept coming back, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, in April of 2022, I made the most shocking decision of my life, and I decided to start reading again. Now, I approached it very cautiously. I decided this was my rule just to get started. I would read for 30 minutes every night. There was no particular speed. There was no particular page goal. it was just read 30 minutes. If it takes you 30 minutes to read 2 pages, it takes that long. If I'm able to read 10 pages in 30 minutes, that's good. If I'm able to read a paragraph in 30 minutes, to me that was considered good. I didn't want to set no hard goals. I just wanted to be very open-minded about it. And the first book that I decided to do this with was How to Be a Boss by Lily Singh. If you know her, she was a Superwoman. She was a huge YouTuber from 2014, 2017, 18. She was a huge YouTuber, went on the Superwoman. Well, she came out with a self-help book long time ago. And it was actually a signed book. And I remember I bought it because I liked her channel at the time. I was a huge fan of her, watched all of her videos at the time. And she had a signed book out at my local bookstore. And so I wanted to have that signed book, knowing I wasn't going to read it. I decided that I wanted that to be the first book. And that book came in at a really good time because I was really struggling with my mental health at this point, and I had a lot of stuff going on with me. And so that book came at a very, very, very appropriate time. I'm so glad that I decided to read it at that moment. And ever since that night, I have liked reading ever since. My love for it has gotten back. I can't pull up an official number. Maybe I can. Give me 1 second, and I might can pull up how many books I've read since April of 2022. It's, to me, not a lot compared to what some people are, but some people will look at this and be like, wow. So, I have read between April 2022 and the filming of this, February 22nd, 2025, I have read a total 35 books. I know that's not a lot. Last year, I kind of went, well, I'll get to that here in a second. So, 2022 was my year of starting to read. Did I ever imagine myself to be able to pick up a book then and read? No, absolutely not. Never thought I would ever read again. And that's just the honest truth. I read every night from that point on. Maybe there was a night here and there that I skipped. But then the time got longer. It went from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And then it's gone from 45 minutes to an hour. It stayed at an hour for a very long time. And I think one of the reasons why I got in 2020, so I read from 2022 on, read the rest from April until the new year, and then I read all year 2023. From January to December, I read all during 2023. When 2024 rolled around, I started kind of getting into a reading slump, and was kind of in a bleh mood. My hatred of reading had not come back. It's just I just didn't feel like reading. There's a difference compared to I would always go into a bookstore and look. I years ago would not even have stepped foot in a bookstore. I mean, I would have, but not deeply look for books and add books to my to be read list or take books down or buy books. It's just different now. So I decided to take 2024 off and focus on school, and I think that was a good decision because school that year was really rough. I was having to take summer classes, and then luckily I graduated into 2024. And so I think earlier this week, as I'm filming this, I started back reading, and I've been reading for about an hour and a half, 2 hours at night. I think one of the reasons why I hated it was because I put a time. At 10 p.m. every night I read from 10 to 11. And I don't need to put a schedule or a designated time. It should be more of, you should read 1 hour. Doesn't matter what hour of the day you read. Just read at least 1 hour. It could be 30 minutes one time, 30 minutes another time. Don't set a time. And I actually have been reading more or longer now, about an hour and a half. So that's honestly the whole story. I mean, it went from loving to read, hating reading, hated books, to loving books again. Um, it's been a long journey. I honestly can't tell you what my thoughts will be in the future. I've got so many books that are on my physical list. I have books piled up everywhere in my room that I have not read because I got into a huge slump and I'm very far behind. My goal for this year was 40, is 40. And I don't know if I'll be able to meet that goal, but I'm going to try my best to get back. But other than that, that's the story. That's my reading journey. Some highs and lows. I'd love to hear from you if you have had if your reading journey has been similar to mine, or if you've always loved reading. Just let me know what your thoughts are on reading. I'm still recovering from the flu, so I actually had not coughed as much during this time. I think I've coughed about 3 or 4 times, which is better than the one episode I did where I was coughing about every breath. So I do apologize for that, but you have to thank my roommate for blessing me with the flu. It's taken me a while, but I'm finally back to 100%. It just took 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I don't know. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in, listening to this. If you would like to hear more, there are other episodes out now. I have one out right now. It's the books, young adult books that I found that were released in January. So all those books are considered out now. So every book that I mentioned in there is out. So if you want to listen to that or need some new books to read, check that out if you're a huge young adult fan. You can catch me on social media. My Instagram and TikTok are southern.reads. Follow me on there. There's no extra letters, just a period in between southern and reads. If you would like to stay updated on the podcast, make sure to follow the podcast. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, or Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Those are the 4 main platforms I have. If any other additional platforms come along or I add them to, I'll definitely let you guys know. Other than that, I think that's all I have for you guys today. I will again link all this in the description box, so if you forget and come back and need socials and all that, I'll list all that in the description box. But that's all I have for you guys today. I'm not sure what next episode I have planned right now. I'm thinking about doing a tier ranking of books I've read in the past. That's an idea I had. Also telling you, maybe introducing some book slang terms and introduce you to the book world so you have an understanding of what all the abbreviations mean. When I was sick, I kind of was really brainstorming a lot of good ideas. So I've got some ideas, but those are the 2 main ones that you could be looking out for, and those are coming soon. Until then, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have any ideas you want me to do. I'm open to do anything that's book related. You can feel free to send me messages on Instagram or leave a comment on these platforms, and I will definitely look at them. But thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all in the next episode. Happy reading, and y'all have a good rest of your day.